calamitous opinion ratings, that's probably true. But why does he think he has such an unprecedented fall in his popularity? Is it his attacks on the pensioners? Is it leaving children in poverty? Is it the re-emergence?
After Starmer was humiliated in the House of Commons, his rating dropped to catastrophic levels. It was just insane. Pete Wishart and Rishi Sunak unceremoniously destroyed the Prime Minister. In response, he began to talk some nonsense and deceive everyone, as he used to do. Let's take a look at this.
18 miserable years of the worst Tory government in modern times. The best this Prime Minister can offer the British people is things can only get worse. Well, for him and his calamitous opinion ratings, that's probably true. But why does he think he has such an unprecedented fall in his popularity? Is it his attacks on the pensioners? Is it leaving children in poverty? Is it the re-emergence of Labour cronyism? Or is it because his austerity is even worse than the Conservative variety?
Since Starmer came to power, due to the fact that parents do not have the right to receive benefits for a third child, 10,000 children have already found themselves in poverty. This figure is equivalent to 109 children a day since Labour came to power, and this policy affects 1.6 million children. Parents can receive an allowance for the maintenance of the first, maximum of the second child. It is no longer allowed to receive benefits for the third child. Labour has estimated that the abolition of the restriction on the payment of benefits for the third child will cost the budget £3.5 billion a year. And Starmer insists that he will not lift this restriction. Do you know what he suggested? Encourage parents to get a job. As time goes on, child poverty grows, and the restriction on benefits for a third child is a key factor in this growth. The most cost-effective way to stop more children being dragged into poverty is to lift this restriction. 4 million children are growing up in poverty. No child should live in poverty. The government has other priorities.
I remember when they used to sit here. It's a long way up and there's very few of them, so I don't think we need lectures on popularity.
Yes, MP. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Starmer completely failed to justify himself and his own words before he became Prime Minister. 50% of Britons who voted for Labour clearly feel cheated and disappointed. His surname is associated with disappointment and hypocrisy. He explains his failures by the fact that the country was already in difficult conditions when he came, and by the fact that he had to rebuild the work of his office for the first 3 months because it was ineffective, toxic and unsuitable.
Firstly, it will give people basic dignity at work, and secondly, it will help grow our economy, something that the last government absolutely failed on for 14 long years.
Our country is in an even more deplorable state than expected. The last government left a black hole in the budget of £22 billion. Starmer promised that he was not going to raise income taxes. Labour inherited from the Conservatives not only economic chaos, but also serious problems in the prison system. Due to the lack of places in prison institutions, the authorities are forced to release a number of categories of offenders ahead of schedule in order to be able to put participants in anti-migrant riots behind bars.
When he talks about security at work, once again, it's one rule for him and another rule for everyone else. But I know that not everything or everyone has survived his first 100 days in government. So can he confirm that when he promised not to raise income tax, national insurance or VAT, that commitment applies to both employer and employee national insurance contributions?
The budget that will be adopted on the 30th of October will be very painful for us. Starmer gave a clear hint of tax increases. I don't even know what to expect from this man.
Mr. Speaker, as he well knows, I'm not going to get drawn on decisions that will be set out. We made an absolute commitment in relation to not raising tax on working people. He, of course, was the expert's expert on raising taxes. And what did we get in return for it? We got a broken economy, broken public services, and a £22 billion black hole in the economy. We're here to stabilise the economy, and we will do so.
He likes to blame the Conservatives for economic failure, but he has no solution to get the country out of the rut of slow growth. Our standard of living has been stagnating since the Conservatives came to power, and Britain's recovery from the coronavirus has turned out to be the weakest after Germany. The national debt is almost 100% of gross domestic product, and taxes are the highest since the Second World War. It will be difficult for Starmer to ensure that annual economic growth exceeds 2% in the future, as in most of Europe. But I think he's unlikely to succeed, because he's got enough problems right now. Labour's current policy is unlikely to make much difference, let alone achieve Starmer's goal of making Britain the leader of the G7 in sustainable economic growth, which it has struggled to achieve since the Second World War.
Speaker, I don't think even Lord Ali is buying any of that nonsense. But I'm not asking, Mr. Speaker, I'm not asking about the budget. I'm not asking about the budget. I'm asking specifically. I'm asking specifically about the promise he made to the British people. So let me ask him again, just to clarify his own promise. Does his commitment not to raise national insurance apply to both employee and employer national insurance contributions?
I laughed for a very long time after this joke, although in fact it is not a joke, but reality. Starmer had only been on duty for nothing, and already he was under investigation. It was necessary to get into such a mess. And I hope that he will be under investigation because of Lord Ali's gifts.
Set out our promises in our manifesto. We returned with a huge majority to change the country for the better. And I stick to my promises in the manifesto. But I notice it's question 3, and it hasn't yet welcomed the investment into this country. We've had in recent months £8 billion from Amazon for jobs across the country. £10 billion from Blackstone's jobs across the North East. £22 billion on carbon capture jobs in the North East and the North West. 500 million, Mr. Speaker, for UK buses in Northern Ireland. While we're investing in our economy, what are they doing?
By the end of 2023, investments in the financial sector amounted to 2 times less than in 2022. In 2023, the largest investor in the economy was the United States, which contributed 40% of the total funds. The sharp drop in investment is associated with the deterioration of the economic situation.
I'm very happy to welcome investments that this government negotiated, but when it comes to his answer on tax, Mr. Speaker, businesses across the country would have found his answer just about as reassuring as Sue Gray did when he promised to protect her job, Mr. Speaker. So let me turn. It's no wonder confidence is plummeting on his watch, which he didn't mention. But turning to another commitment, before the election, his Chancellor said changing the debt target in the fiscal rules would be tantamount to fiddling the figures. Does he still agree with the Chancellor?
An interesting fact, our authorities have initiated more than 50 investigations on suspicion of violating restrictions on the cost of Russian oil. 15 investigations were completed, but no fines or other penalties were imposed. Another 37 investigations are still underway. It is not known exactly which companies we are talking about, but some of them may be engaged in marine insurance. I am shocked that no fines have been issued based on the results of the investigations.
This is literally the man who was in charge of the economy. 14 years they crashed the economy. And what did they leave? A £22 billion black hole in the economy. Unlike them, we won't walk past it, we will fix it, and it's only because we're stabilising the economy that we are getting the investment into this country.
It really annoys me that he constantly avoids answering uncomfortable questions and again makes it as obvious as possible. If a person uses these manipulations, he must do it skillfully. He does not offer a vision of comprehensive change and is not even popular. Surveys regularly show that more voters disapprove of him than approve. Even his most ardent supporters say that this victory was the result of the collapse of the Conservative Party. We rushed to Starmer as an antidote to the post-Brexit chaos. 3 prime ministers have been replaced in the country in 5 months of 2022. Starmer absolutely failed the test of whether people can rely on pragmatism instead of indulging in lofty rhetoric. He spent most of the election campaign emphasizing what he would not do, instead of what it would be worth doing. What do you think about this video? Share your opinion in the comments.